Hey, everybody, welcome back to TV Guys, where we're going to be recapping seasons 1 through 3 of The Office. I'm your host, Matt Rodenberg.
And this is Brian Jones, and I plan to spend the next 2 hours talking about the Muppets with you.
What are you
Sounds
guys
reasonable.
doing?
I don't mind that idea, but I mean, you guys invite us late to the Zoom meeting for this?
Yeah. Have
What are
you
you
guys
talking
been
about?
talking for a long time?
This is
You
our
guys-
podcast.
I thought you guys weren't coming.
No, yeah. We invited you as guests. What are you
What do you
doing?
mean, what do you mean, guess? I'm the host.
All right, this isn't funny. Michael!
Cue the music.
Hey everyone, welcome back to TV Guys. Hey, here's a fun drinking game for you and your friends. Take a shot every time you hear the phrase, "That's what she said today." I'm Matt,
I'm Brian.
I'm Paul.
Dan.
and we've got two special guests. We've got the Risdall brothers in the house today as we are talking about The Office. We've talked about The Office before, right, guys?
Well, some of us have.
And is excited. This guy.
And Dan finally has graduated from Stranger Things into The Office. So we are going to break down The Office and do a little bit more deep dives because there's a lot that we can talk about with this show. So we're going to talk about our first 3 seasons of The Office and a couple different categories. And since we've got a lot of categories, we're going to jump into it. We've had these guests before. They don't need more introduction than they've got. So each season we're going to ask what was the best cold open? What was the best storyline? What was the worst storyline? What was the best and worst episode? And then also, what is the most gifable or memeable moment? So season 1 is pretty easy for cold opens because it didn't have any. But let's just jump into. I was mentioning to you guys, there's a Superfans. One of the Superfan episodes has a cold open, and that's the Alliance. And Dwight is like putting on his password or something, and Jim keeps guessing it. Like he guesses that your password's Frodo. No, and then he changes it. And he's like, "Oh, did you just change it to Gollum?" So that's the only cold open. So by default, I guess that wins.
I will say this too: the stapler joke, which is in season 1, the stapler and Jello, that is kind of a precursor for many cold opens to come. A lot of the season 2 cold opens are Jim Dwight pranks.
Was that the first Jim prank?
Yes.
Yeah,
Nice.
I think so. And it said, and then he did that to Michael too with his calculator. So
yeah,
and that prank has been replicated across offices all over the country. It's pretty well known moment.
Yeah. Season 1 gets a lot of hate, and sometimes I'll admit I've given it the hate, but there are a lot of great moments, and the Jello moment is part of it for sure.
I was about to say a similar thing. I think season 1, even though the show is still finding its voice in those first 6 episodes and they're trying to figure out, I think it's underrated. I think there are a couple really great episodes and a couple clunkers too.
Let's jump into storylines because there's not too many arcs since, again, they're finding their voice and there's only 6 episodes. It's hard to do arcs over 6 episodes. That's what Disney Plus shows are trying to do, and they all suck at it. Yeah. So what's the best storyline that has come out of season 1?
I don't know if this is the best storyline, but one thing that I thought was cool about the beginning is Ryan was just kind of like the humble temp, where it kind of got worse as the series went on, and that's kind of one thing I appreciated about him is he was just kind of this guy that Michael was obsessed with.
But I think in the very beginning, Ryan was like the audience surrogate. Like he was viewing The Office through our eyes because he was new as well, saying, "Look at all these crazies." And then, of course, he became one of the crazies later on himself. But I think he was way more grounded in season 1, which was an interesting dynamic. They kind of lost a little bit later.
It's like the opposite of Michael, where you learn to love Michael, but Ryan, you learn to hate him more and more as he went on.
Yeah.
Yeah,
for sure.
Post season 3, Ryan is the worst. Everything prior in season 3, he's fine.
I really loved. I think kind of the heart of season 1 is the Jim and Dwight kind of friendship rivalry, mostly rivalry at this point. And it's really highlighted in the Alliance. That's a great episode that kind of shows the little war that's going on in the office, and that's probably my favorite. Just seeing those two play off each other, they just work so well together as actors.
Yeah. And seeing like the prank war they have a little. Well, it's not really a war because Dwight doesn't really prank back at Jim very much, especially in the beginning. It doesn't prevent them from actually getting their work done.
Debatable. I mean, Jim is
Maybe
a
Jim.
bit of a slacker early
But
on.
would Jim have gotten his work done anyways, or maybe not?
I mean, I've been in an office where it's like I can get my work done in a few hours in the day, and then like, what do you do with the rest of your day? So I totally understand that side of it, and I think that's relatable for a number of people.
I mean, I recently was in a bit of a prank war back and forth for about a week. It involved some, putting Tabasco sauce and pickle shots, and me getting pelted with muffins, the normal stuff. But we still got all of our stuff done.
Yeah. For me, the storyline that stands out, and it's made deeper in season 2, but we get the start of the Jim Pam storyline, and that's what I love early on in the first 3 seasons. Like every single season, that is one of the top storylines to me.
I was gonna talk about that in season 2 more. I mean, it starts in season 1, obviously, but season 2 is where I think that's the strongest.
Is the scene where Pam falls asleep on Jim's shoulder, is that in season 1 or is that season 2?
That's during Diversity Day.
Yeah, that's kind of a big moment.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. And it's really good writing of like showing like something so bad happened to him that day and he missed out on this big sale, and yet he still calls it a good day because of that.
Right.
Yeah.
All right. Well, let's look at what is the worst storyline. So because again, not so many arcs, for me, I personally picked just like one side plot of one episode where the healthcare one, Michael's trying to figure out what's his surprise going to be because he promises a surprise to everyone in the office since he knows they're not happy about how healthcare is being handled. That storyline just doesn't go anywhere. And especially because it ends with him not actually having a surprise at the end. So it literally goes nowhere.
I think it's like, did anybody actually think that Michael had a surprise, or were they all just calling his bluff and seeing what he would do? Because they all wait a little bit and like, where's the surprise? And they wait for him to be like,
How'd that go again?
No, we don't need to do that again. I also had kind of a specific. It's really a reference to one episode because it's the last episode and it kind of carries into season 2. But I thought the whole Jim and Amy Adams, the hot girl episode, I just didn't. I know they're just doing things to kind of forestall the inevitable fact that he and Pam end up together, but it was actually kind of unfortunate because Amy Adams is a great actress and really didn't utilize her well in that scene.
Yeah, I never believed that she would be a real long-standing character, that she had a real chance of standing in the way of Jim and Pam. Not in the way that Roy and Karen did.
Yeah, Karen was a better version of the same idea.
Yeah.
Well, I really hate to agree with you, but I actually had the same thing.
Is it the same as me or the same as Brian?
The same as Paul. It was just kind of, you could kind of tell, okay, Jim and Pam are going to end up together, and then this girl is just here to cause some tension for a while, and while they're developing the Roy thing and all that.
Yeah.
Love that.
Let's look at a best episode, because I feel like there's a very clear winner for best episode in season 1, and I'd be surprised actually if anyone.
Let's all see if we say it at the same time.
All right, ready? Go. Diversity.
Basketball.
Ooh.
What did you say, Dan?
I said Diversity Day.
I do say those.
I had honorable mention Diversity Day because I think there's 2 great episodes in this season.
I hate to agree with Paul too sometimes, but I have just a list of episodes for every season, and those are the 2 I have listed for best episode of season 1. But I have to give the tie to Diversity Day. But those are very close, I think.
Yeah, no one's gonna fault Paul for picking basketball. You guys might, because it's fun to just blame Paul for anything. But that's not a bad choice. But to me, I feel like Diversity Day is one of those like classic episodes where it's like you think about The Office. There's certain episodes that come to mind, and that to me is the only one from season 1 that I'd be like, that is in the same running as some of these other really good episodes.
If you talk to the actors too, I mean, they'll say that was basically the episode that like made them
right, because it was the first one that their writers did, because the pilot was a carbon copy of the British version. Yeah, I totally agree. It's a great episode. I'm not disputing that at all. Part of it is I love basketball, but there were just so many funny moments. I'll let you guys talk about Diversity Day in a second here. But like the idea that, oh, we're gonna pick Stanley because he's a black guy and he's just atrociously bad. I mean, just everything about that episode was hilarious. The way that Dwight approached it, that Jim is actually a really athletic guy, and then the scene at the end with Kevin, and the fact that like Brian can actually ball a little bit.
Brian Baumgartner,
not Brian Jones.
No one's making clarification.
But I mean, like making shot after shot, that wasn't like a planned part. He was just doing that. They filmed him, and it was just such like they missed this great opportunity to have a stud on their team. It was pretty hilarious.
And I also really like Michael's reactions of the like, what is wrong with me today? Usually make those like the overcompensation.
Yeah,
it's really good.
I know I'm jumping ahead, but I will say the Stanley moment dribbling the basketball is the best. Moment.
And there's a callback because obviously we're not talking about the season, but on like when Michael leaves, they call back to having the basketball court because he does that whole thing where he tries to make the shot. He's like, "See you on the flippity flip warehouse."
And I know we're not here yet, and so I'm cheating as well, Dan. But I'm going to piggyback that the gifable moment for me comes right after that, and that's Michael looking at Stanley dribbling. He goes, "You got to be kidding me!" He does that. He does that line really well.
I think they made a shirt of Stanley dribbling a basketball. And I mean that was an iconic moment.
Yeah,
true.
Okay, talk about Diversity Day.
I love all the different cards that Michael put on people's heads. So many great moments. Like, this is before Kevin turned stupid, and Kevin was just kind of dull. And he asked Angela, "You want to get high?" I think you do, man.
Dwight,
so bad.
Dwight trying to figure out that he's Asian, and Pam tells him that he's a bad driver. Oh, am I a woman?
Yeah.
I just think that was Steve Carell just unleashed.
Mm-hmm.
Yes.
Do you think that like most of this stuff could still air today?
There's no way they could do that episode today.
Even like, you can call me Mr. Brown. Oh, there's the first test. I know I'm not going to call you that. Which this is the same exact joke they did on an episode of Fresh Prince of Bel-Air, where this one like rich white guy told, "Well, you call me Whitey," and he's like, "No, you call me the other thing, and it's going to be a thing." It's just like the same joke, but it works. Sorry, that was a derailment.
And this formula for this episode, they use a lot of different times with different things. But the whole formula of Michael gets fixated on something that's inappropriate, and he tries to show how like with it he is and inappropriate he is, and just makes it worse and derails everyone else's entire day, especially in the conference room. Like, we've seen that a lot for The Office, and so this was the first time of using it, and that is a very strong formula that they've used in other episodes.
Was this a famous Chris Rock bit that was around at the time that people would have been referencing?
Probably. Yeah. I don't remember what it was, but
yeah.
Because he was
doing the Chris Rock voice.
Yeah, about Chris Rock talking about how black people are racist to other black people, and I could see that being a bit from one of his stand-ups. I don't remember that specific Chris Rock stand-up.
I actually had the note cards on the forehead as my most memeable, gifable moment, just because that one is one that like is just such a memorable thing. It's just so inappropriate and so offensive.
Yeah.
All right, Brian, why don't you tell us your most memeable moment, and then we'll jump into the worst episode.
I think just the classic stapler and Jell-O. It's iconic to The Office.
It's a good shout.
Yeah.
Sounds good. All right, so worst episode. I've got two, so you guys can go, and I'll tell you the other one if you pick one of mine.
Oh, I know
what Dan's going to pick.
You know what I'm going to pick?
I know what you're going to pick.
I don't really remember season 1.
I thought you'd say the pilot.
I said the pilot for mine. I'll have to jump in.
I mean, obviously it's kind of the start of part of everything. But yeah, it wasn't that exciting to me. Season 1 was kind of it. I love The Office, but season 1 was kind of like, okay, let's get through this.
Yeah.
How about you, Paul? What do you got?
It was kind of a toss up for me between healthcare and the pilot. I actually landed on the pilot too, just because it seemed from listening to Greg Daniels talk about it, he was militant that they had to stick to the original script on the first episode to set the tone for the rest of the series, so that they wouldn't deviate from that kind of darker comedy that you got with the British Office. And so maybe that was a smart thing to do right from the beginning, but it just kind of seemed like it was shoehorned in a little bit, that the characters are not the same as the British episode, and it just didn't necessarily feel natural, and didn't the characters seemed kind of out of whack a little bit on that first one. So that's my choice.
In the Superfans episode of the pilot, to show how different these characters are, during one of the meetings, Stanley is standing up in the conference room by the window, and you actually see that over the shoulder of Ryan in like the intro when he's on the phone. No, not Ryan. Maybe it's Jim. Someone's on the phone, and then you can see the conference room in the back, and Dwight and Stanley standing up, not on his crossword puzzle. And even more so, after they're talking about layoffs, then Michael Scott says, well, don't you trust me? And he looks Stanley in the eyes and says, do you trust me? And Stanley says, yeah, Michael, I trust you. I'm like, that is not Stanley in any way.
Unless he's saying it sarcastically, which he wouldn't have been.
Oh, yeah, Michael, I trust you.
Yes, there you go.
I do not think that is funny.
Pilot is pretty bad. I don't really like healthcare. And then the other episode I
one.
wanted to throw out was Hot Girl. It's like, it has a really fun. I really love the line when they're clearing out the car.
Yes,
and
the Filet-O
he's got
Fish.
the Powerade. What flavor is it? Blue. There's no flavor of blue. It says Blue Blast. Oh, Blue Blast.
Put that in the passenger cup holder, please.
I think Hot Girl had some funny moments, and I didn't like the arc with Jim and the Hot Girl, but I don't know.
I like Jim
it was funny.
I like Jim and Pam doing the voiceovers of Dwight talking to Katie. That was funny.
True. That's good. All right. Anything else about season 1? That we went quick, but that's what it deserves.
We gotta do the best.
That's what she
we
said.
did the best. Never mind.
We did. Now we do the rest. All right. Season 2. Let's start again at cold opens. Anyone want to jump at that?
All right, let's jump up here.
So no one takes it. I think the George Foreman grill, that whole moment.
The classic.
Oh, that was a
burn.
close. That was the cold open. I forgot that was.
Yeah,
That was.
Well,
And
it
that
started
sets
with
up
the phone
episode,
call.
too.
The phone call that he calls in, right?
Yeah. Don't send Dwight.
Yeah. That was good. I also like the one in the fight where Dwight comes in and his desk is just missing.
I like the carpet when Pam was away from, like, on vacation, and Ryan's at the desk, and Jim keeps looking at him, and Ryan's like, Jim keeps looking at me all day. It wouldn't bother me, or it would bother me, but it's nothing compared to the way that Michael looks at me. And then it pans over, and Michael's just standing at the window, staring through the blinds. And then when he notices he's caught, he's just like, oh, what? And he just walks away. Love that.
that one was really good. I actually had that one listed as one of my favorites too.
There it is. You and me, Dan.
I would say, okay, there's a number of good Dwight Jim pranks as cold opens in this season, but probably my favorite. I actually thought about the desk one too, because I really like that one. But my favorite is actually the vending machine one, where he takes all Dwight's stuff and puts it in the vending machine, and including his wallet. And he's like, he's gonna buy it. Where's my wallet? And he can't find it. Oh, it's D3. So Jim hands him a bag of nickels, and so he's there feeding one nickel at a time into the vending. I thought that was just like so well thought through and so clever. And then there was one other one that I wanted to mention, the football scene where they're throwing the football around, and eventually somebody just gets creamed. Was it? I can't even remember who it was. Was it?
Yeah,
Ryan?
Dwight tackles Ryan.
Yeah.
Because he catches it, and then like Michael's like, "Oh, it clearly went too far." Which, as a parent, I completely understand that. Like, you're messing around, and then the kids are like, "Oh, I'm just going to make it bigger and bigger," and then you realize, like, "Oh crap, I didn't rein this in way earlier. I should have." And so you think that's what Michael's going to do, and then the Pam throws it to her.
Another one I wanted to mention was the Dwight was on the medicine ball, the workout ball.
Yes. That was an accident.
It was?
Because, so the way that prank was supposed to work was when he stabbed the medicine ball, it's supposed to slowly let the air out of that ball. So he was just going to be like, well, if you hit it exactly on the seam, it ruptures instead. And that was just a 1 in a million. It was the only take that they did. It was the first take, and he hit it right on the seam, and it ended up being 10 times better.
That's great. That is a good, very fortuitous.
We'll probably have a lot of trivia here that we know because of the Office ladies and Off the Beat and all the Office podcasts.
And from being lifelong Office fans. And by lifelong, I mean the last 15 years that it's been online.
Speaking of the Beat, Ryan Baumgartner is going to join us in a couple minutes. I'm just kidding.
Surprise!
I asked him, though, and he did not reply.
I wonder how
Which
many
is weird.
I wonder how many requests he gets.
All right, let's hit best storyline. There's a lot of good storylines. I pulled, like, okay, I've got a one that's a couple episodes long, but I picked one also in just one episode. I really liked the story of the client of Michael pitching to Lackawanna County and just all of that. Like that kicked off a lot of good stuff with Jan, but that also kicked off like that one thing that we see every now and then of him actually being a good salesman. Yeah. And I always love seeing that side of him.
Yeah, I think they needed that. Yeah.
I know Brian's going to talk about the Jim Pam storyline because this season it starts with the Dundies and ends with Casino Night, which are like the two big moments for them before the engagement and all that stuff. But I also had like the development of Michael in the sense that it was a shift from what the British office was, where the boss is just a stone cold jerk the entire time. And Michael, we learned that he's good at his job with the whole scene at Chili's with Jan. And then we also learned that he has a heart, which Halloween is kind of that classic episode where he has to let somebody go at the end of the day. He goes home and you see him handing out candy to the kids, and you're like, he's not such a bad guy after all. He actually does have a heart. And so his development as a character was pretty massive in this season too.
I feel God in this Chili's.
You just throw it out.
You were just waiting for that.
I would say a storyline I really liked was actually Dwight and Angela. They were just kind of like these two kind of out there characters that I felt like kind of balanced each other out. And I mean, Dwight was obviously Dwight, and Angela was this, I don't know, it kind of brought some humanity to her where she was kind of this stickler and always annoyed. And obviously the thing with Dwight kind of changed things for her.
Was the first time we got a hint of that at the email surveillance at Jim's party, or was there a hint before then?
I think there was a hint before that, just one episode, that knowing the future, and I don't know if this was in the super fans or if it was just in the regular, and I'm blanking on that was because performance review, I think, because there was something that Dwight says about Angela, and then the next episode was when they really confirmed that and have everything.
Yeah. They made a point.
I don't remember the specific.
Yeah, like they made a point to show what shoes they were wearing, so that at the end, when you saw their feet sticking out, you'd know who it was.
They even point out the house behind there in one of the deleted scenes, but that's not as important to highlight because you just needed to know the shoes.
But yeah, the Jim and Pam storyline, going back to that, is really, I think it's at its strongest in this season because there's so much tension. There's so much, you don't know how it's going to go because Pam is still with Roy. And you can see that they're developing this real friendship and getting closer. Well, seemingly it's all in Jim's head as far as being anything romantic. We don't know if Pam is reciprocating at all. And I think another great episode for this is Michael's birthday, when Jim and Pam go and buy all the stuff for Michael, or buy the stuff for Kevin, because it's Michael's birthday, but Kevin might have cancer. and just their back and forth in the grocery store and just them having fun together outside of the office was a cool thing to see.
Yeah. I did like Dan. I did like Dwight and Angela's thing too. I had that written down as the arc, so that's why I was happy that you said that. You and me, we got it. But again,
they just had a lot of characters that were like you couldn't, like Dwight's one of those characters you just can't stand, but it's like kind of those moments where you're like, okay, I don't mind this guy so much.
Mm-hmm.
I don't like what they did with them from season 4 on, but whatever.
I like how they ended. I don't like the middle part.
Yeah.
See, that's the problem of having a show that goes that many seasons. Like 9 seasons is a long time to drag stuff out, and like the Dwight and Angela resolution was the very last thing on the show. So I mean, they had to do some things to kind of break it up.
And like the Jim and Pam's relationship got less interesting the more it went on.
Yeah, unfortunately. So worst storyline. Speaking of relationships, I don't like Ryan and Kelly. I didn't when they were putting them together. I'm like, okay, whatever. It's not something that I laugh too much about.
I thought that was funny.
I hate to agree with you, but I really hate to agree with you twice. So.
I think
so far.
I think that's funny. Actually, I really I enjoyed their toxic relationship. I thought that was like a nice counterbalance to the like idealistic relationship that Jim and Pam had to maybe like show like this is the worst relationship. I don't know. I thought it was kind of funny. I couldn't find a storyline I didn't like in this season.
Ooh.
Yeah. I feel like that was the beginning of Ryan's downhill.
Yeah.
I don't know. He kind of started out as this humble guy, and I said this earlier, but kind of went to that kind of a jerk guy.
Don't you need him to be that?
I mean, you do need villains, I suppose, and it doesn't like. There's so many times that you have Andy as a villain, you have Ryan as a villain, you have Nellie, Robert California, Jan. Like, there's plenty of times that they all take roles as villains. So, I mean, you can have that, but you don't need him.
Ryan's less redeemable than the others, though.
Yeah, in the end. Yeah.
I don't know. Jan got pretty irredeemable for me.
Yeah.
Speaking of, we have to talk about Michael and Jan, because Michael and Jan started in season 2.
True.
Which was like a really bonkers relationship, because it's like Jan wanted nothing to do with the relationship, but yet she kept coming back to Michael. It's like she self-destructed so hard in this series.
That's maybe a better toxic relationship storyline than Ryan and Kelly. I love the Michael Jan storyline. I think it's hilarious.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah,
I think it's good that it ended when it did, but it was good.
Yeah, they did it on a lot of different levels of her embracing it, of her being jealous after initially turning him down, and then he starts dating Carol, and so she starts like honing in on him.
Mm-hmm.
They did a lot of good levels of it, and then like when they're actually together, Michael, being as desperate as he was like, I actually don't want to be in this relationship. So they did it well.
There's something about whoever's in that role. I don't remember what Jan's role was, the person over all the managers, because Ryan and Jan are like the two worst people in the show, and they both had that role.
And Charles Minor sucks.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I don't like him either.
Who else? Was there anybody else who had that role? Because that wasn't exactly Robert California.
It was David Wallace to some extent, that he was kind of...
He was above him, though.
But he kind of filled that role, and then Charles Minor came in and like created a level of separation there, where before he was there, David Wallace was the go-to guy at corporate.
And then even the episode when they're saying that Michael kind of is filling in for some of the responsibilities that role would have was the one where he shuts down Prince Paper. Like, so, I mean, even then Michael becomes a villain in that episode. True. Just in the one time that he has that responsibility.
Yeah, I think David Wallace was the most successful at managing Michael.
Yeah.
And we see
he
that
wasn't an actor, right? He was just like a business guy, wasn't he?
Yeah.
He was both. Yeah.
Well, I mean, like in real life, like.
Yeah, no, he was primarily a guy that worked at like some financial firm, but I think he was still trying to pursue that career too.
He was in
fantastic
Jurassic World.
Casting. He was. It was really good casting. I really like the actor who plays him because he's super believable in that role, and it's just very very human reactions of a CEO responding to an employee like this that you're like, I don't know if I should fire him, or like, especially because he has success too, and he has to acknowledge the success that Michael sometimes has.
Well, I don't remember what scene this is in. This might be season 3, but David Wallace had a talking head where he's like, basically said, Michael's branch is doing well, so can we really turn our nose at that?
Okay, here we are. I'm sorry, we're still on worst storylines. We're going to bring it back. So I had said Brian and Kelly. Did anyone else say their worst storyline of the season? Paul said he doesn't have one.
I said same as you.
Oh, that's right, Dan. Brian, did you have a worst storyline?
If I had to pick one, maybe just like the downsizing one. Even though it led to I like the Creed episode where Devin got fired, but I don't know, just the looming. Ooh, is someone going to get downsized? I thought was kind of overplayed a little bit.
Yeah,
and that's a take from the original, right? From the British.
I think so, because that was in the pilot, wasn't it?
Yeah.
Yeah. And I mean, it makes sense too. It's a paper company, and like this sort of economy, it would make sense for a small paper company to be worried about that.
Yeah,
100%. Let's talk about best episode, and there are a lot of good ones in this season.
Okay, I'm pulling up my list.
All right, you guys pick first, and I have 4 of them.
Well, I'll cheat and take like the winner that is easy to go with, because they put a lot of big stuff in season finales, and Casino Night was just so good. It was a great episode. It was like the first episode I remember watching of The Office, like in order, that I was like, this is like high-end TV. This is pinnacle stuff. So
no way I can pick a 3-way tie, right?
Nope.
All right.
I mean, I like
one,
too.
and then if come back to it if we don't talk about some of the other ones here.
Yeah, all right. I almost picked Office Olympics, but I'm going to choose Booze Cruise. I love Booze Cruise. It's a great episode.
Okay, both those have been on my list so far. So
yeah,
we're doing good so far.
Rob Riggle.
I love Booze Cruise. I thought it was a great. First of all, like they ended things with Amy Adams. That I don't even remember her character's name. The hot girl, Amy.
Katie.
Sure. Katie. Okay, but I mean, there was just a lot going on in that episode. It was really clever.
Had a great Michael moment at the end too, when he's encouraging Jim in a very uncharacteristic way.
One of the best moments in that was when Dwight had the little steering wheel on the ship. He thinks he's driving it, and Angela's trying to pull him away. He's like, "No, I'm driving this." And then you look behind, and there's someone actually driving it.
And then Jim correctly is like, Michael says, "I'm king of the world, or else I give you my paycheck." And then just when he does it, just that little point, like, "Yep."
I had some cringe with the way that Michael kept trying to interject over Rob Riggle and like their power dynamic. That was a little too cringe for me to enjoy this episode as much as you guys did.
Which the Superfan episode shows that more, because in the regular episode, a lot of it got cut about how it was only approved if it was going to be a leadership seminar. That way Michael had to try to force it being a leadership on top of just the fun Booze Cruise, which is what it was supposed to be.
Yeah.
Okay, Dan.
I'm going to say the best episode was the first one, the Dundies.
That
was like, I mean, that was one of those moments that set up for a lot of moments throughout the rest of the season. And I mean, obviously the Jim and Pam thing kind of continued there. And I don't know. I just thought there was just a lot of great moments. I mean, it's basically Michael just given an opportunity to just be himself for 30 minutes. So I just thought it was.
And we set up the whole Pam thing because, when they realize that it's not being paid for, Roy and the warehouse guys leave. And then we see a little bit of the argument where Pam and Roy are arguing because Pam doesn't want to leave. And that kind of leads her to steal everybody's drinks and get drunk and lead her to kissing Jim on accident.
Yeah.
Good episode.
Those were all the big ones for me. I really loved. I think the Dundies would probably be my favorite of those 3. I mean, it's the jokes in that episode are just awesome, and just the way it played out is great. The only other honorable mention that I would throw in there would be the fire. I really liked the fire too. I thought that was a really creative episode.
And a lot of these involve getting the characters outside of the office, even just outside the parking lot or on the booze cruise, or at Chili's, or in the warehouse for casino night. I think, or even at the skating rink for Michael's birthday. It's really interesting when you get them out of the office and kind of take them out of their element, and how do they all react, which is another one.
The fire really gave Ryan his first deep thing for an episode, like to really help define him, because up to that point he didn't really have too much apart from being the temp, and this one let you know like the he thinks he's better than he is sort of personality, and that was a great way to start to solidify his character.
And not ironically, it makes sense actually. It was written by BJ Novak, so he kind of wrote himself the starring role in this one. But it was pretty great.
Makes sense. I mentioned with best storylines, I like the client, of course, and I like the injury too. That's just a fun episode.
Mm-hmm.
Really good Dwight and Pam moments in the injury. I like that. All right. Worst episode. For me, it was Dwight's speech. I don't really like that episode too much.
Oh,
finally,
no.
Dan, you and I were on
Okay.
different wavelengths.
One of my favorite moments, because Jim teaching him to talk like Mussolini or Hitler or all these things, like, and then he's actually doing it and pounding on the table.
And the crowd loves it.
that
Oh, it
episode.
was so. Oh, that moment was. I would say the episode maybe itself wasn't that amazing.
What else
but
was
that
happening?
moment was legendary.
What was going on back at the office during this?
Jim is trying to figure out where to go on vacation so that he's not there when Pam's getting married.
Oh, that's dumb. I mean, that was boring, I think.
Yeah, exactly.
I
oh
said
no, he can't figure out where he's going to be in avoidance.
you could just stay home.
Yeah.
I said the carpet was kind of a boring episode.
I said the same thing. Right?
Yeah.
I'm saying that now.
I don't understand why they were censoring what it was on the carpet. Like, sure, it was a giant dump, but it's like, was it more than that? That's why they're not saying anything.
They censored it. I forgot about that.
Like, no one specifically said that's like what it was, and how hard would it be to say? Because that's what my mind fills it in. That he just took a giant dump, and I don't know how. Yeah, that's what I thought. But they make it seem like it's like a combination of poop and roadkill, or like something like that. I don't.
But later on at Shoot Farms, they could have Andy stepping in how many piles of horse crap, and then that's shown just fine.
Maybe
Like
there's a
kitchen.
rule about showing human excrement on television.
I mean, it's fine if they censor it, but to not even say, like, not to say it's human feces. How? I don't get it. Okay.
I mean, that's a line you could give to Meredith. Meredith could just say, "Oh yeah, someone took a dump," and that's
Right.
I don't know.
So I was struggling to find something. I actually picked the one. I went through the list of episodes and picked the one that I remembered the least about, which was Valentine's Day. I honestly don't remember hardly anything about it. So
only
that's
thing I
my worst
remember is
episode.
when Ryan and Kelly got together. But what else was going on?
Michael was in New York. And I think Michael in New York has some
yeah.
good stuff, especially like Conan passing him when he's talking to fake Tina Fey.
Is that when he passes like the Sbarro pizza and he's like, I always like to get
A real New York.
That was the other one.
And that's when we meet the other branch managers.
All
And
right,
Michael makes that movie.
I withdraw my submission.
But even then, like the other guy didn't bring anything. Michael brought that cheesy movie, but he also brought the actual stats for his branch like he was supposed to. Whereas the other guy who was played by the dad from Phil of the Future, which yes, that's how I remember him, is he was
middle name.
Yes. He was like, I didn't bring it. I thought this was a meet and greet thing to show like, yeah, Michael might be a dunce, but he's better than this guy.
In a deleted scene, Michael bumps into Devin living homeless on the streets of New York City in that episode. And Devin chases him down the street.
Yeah.
You're welcome. All right, last thing for season 2. What is the most gifable moment? Dan, we've got the same one. I know we've got the same one, Dan. What is it?
What? What? I gotta find that. I don't know.
I feel God in this Chili's.
Oh,
That's what I have too.
I had Kevin and Phyllis doing the Flonkerton in Office Olympics.
Dan, that was yours. This I feel God in this Chili's. I mean, it makes sense. You've said it a couple
guess
times.
so. I didn't.
I I love as a response. I love what Michael says to Toby in Casino Night. Though, why are you the way that you are? I
Yeah.
love that quote,
That's
and
such-
I have sent that gift.
I
many
use
times.
that all the time too. Why are you the way that you are? You
It's
take
just such
everything that is
disappointment.
fun and make it not that way.
That's so much better than him yelling at him. He's just disappointed in the character of Toby, of who he is at the core of his humanity.
So I had that actually as a backup for one of my best storylines from season 1, because the Michael Toby hatred starts in season 1, and that is such a great runner throughout the show, but it wasn't high enough priority to.
I don't know how they did it, but it's like you're watching the show and you're like, yeah, I hate that guy, and you have no idea why. They just did it so well. I don't know. There's something about Steve Carell that just like makes you agree with him. I don't know.
Yeah.
I actually also had for a memorable moment was Dwight's speech, just because it was it was so hilarious.
What is it? Blood alone turns the wheels of history.
This isn't necessarily a meme, but one moment I thought was just hilarious was when Dwight caught Oscar faking sick, but he was actually with his boyfriend or whatever. So he caught him like faking sick, but completely missed the fact that he was gay, and that was kind of the beginning of that storyline with Oscar. But I just thought that moment was hilarious, where they're sitting on the couch and he's just oblivious to all the things going on.
I think a lot of the Oscar being gay stuff would not fly today.
Yeah, especially gay witch hunt. That episode would be a witch hunt. So,
well, speaking of, should we move on to season 3?
Let's move on to season 3. All right, we've got cold opens, y'all. Got some great cold opens. Who's going to claim the identity theft at the beginning of Product Recall as their favorite? Because that is one of the best cold opens in the show.
It's like the tagline for the series. It's like what people know of. If they don't know The Office, they still know Bears beats Battlestar Galactica.
Yeah,
that was mine.
I got a few, but I would say my favorite was when Jim was sending the faxes to future Dwight.
Yes,
that's another one I got.
That's the copy out of Stanley. I mean, that was that moment. I just remember dying and laughing at that one.
Mm-hmm.
Tremendous prank. I love it.
And I think while they were like pulling Jim away and developing other characters, that was kind of a moment to bring them back together.
Yeah.
Yeah,
they had that,
absolutely.
and they had the convention, which were kind of the two main connections they had there, I think.
Yeah, they had the one phone call at the end of one of the episodes. I can't remember which one it was.
With Jim and Pam,
yeah. And then for cold openings, also I love at the beginning of Back from Vacation when he has notes. Dwight is taking notes for the meeting, and so then they're all like messing around of like saying that Dwight is doing like the knife and pulling his pants down and all this sort of stuff. I thought that was a great scene.
I love how everyone else started to chime in. Like Karen's like, "Do you have a Muppet Babies tattoo?" And Phil's like, "Oh, Jim Carrey walked in, get his autograph."
Jim Carrey did not walk in.
Brian just talked about the Muppets.
So I talked about a reference in The Office about Muppets. That doesn't count.
It all comes around, though.
No, it
So
does.
let's talk about
that
Muppets for a
absolutely
couple minutes.
Let's
No,
spend
it's
the
not.
next.
That's a Karen Philip Kelly
Hold on.
reference.
I also loved the Pavlovian mint thing that Jim and Dwight had. Every time his computer would ding, he'd offer him a mint, and after a while, it just ding, and Dwight reached out his hand like he's expecting a mint. It was hilarious.
I love the one moment where he's like, "Mint, Dwight? Mint? Yeah, I'll take it."
All right, what do you got as the best storyline? There's a lot of great storylines in this season. I picked one that I was actually surprised about, and I picked the merger. I thought that like the story hit its stride once they brought Stamford to Scranton and resolving all of those new dynamics, and we got some great stuff with Benihana Christmas and the Convict and a couple episodes.
Spoiler alert: the merger is my favorite episode of the entire series.
Ooh, really?
Yeah. It might be a controversial pick. It's but for me, it's just my personal favorite.
So I actually, along with what Matt had to say, I went a little bit more specific, and I said the power dynamics in the office, and that's really in line with the merger too. But like, there's new employees, they're all fighting over who's going to be the boss, like who's going to like work closest to Michael, and you know, the Andy Dwight rivalry is kind of starting there too.
I actually like the fact that they took Jim away for a while and brought in Karen and Andy. And I know Paul hates Andy, but I just felt like it was a good moment to develop. I think the whole idea with Jim going away and coming back for a while, it just brought opportunity for some fun characters. And obviously, I mean, I think the Karen thing was better than the relationship with Katie. So I think that was another way. I think anytime you want to develop characters for a longer show, I think kind of breaking them up is a good way to do that.
Karen is a good character, and I know she would be an easy character to not root for because you're still rooting for Jim and Pam, especially that first time that you're meeting her, and so you can easily get a bad taste in your mouth as soon as you realize that, oh, she's gonna, and you like want to her. But she is very likable. I liked Karen a lot.
Yeah,
I agree.
I think my favorite storyline in season 3 is just Pam, like on her own, like kind of coming into her own and realizing, oh, I don't want to be with Roy, and then, it kind of comes to the culmination at the end with the coal walk when she has that speech at the end saying like, I'm speaking up for what I want, and Jim, I don't like that we're friends anymore, and I called off my wedding for you, like that whole speech, and she kind of just stops being like hiding in the background in that scene.
I actually had that as my backup too.
Yeah, this is Pam's best season in development for sure.
Yes, by far.
Worst story. Did everyone get their storylines in? I didn't miss anyone, did I? All right. So worst storyline, I have to disagree with Paul. I don't really like the Dwight versus Andy. I didn't like that as much.
I had that as well, just because I think it overplayed, especially what was it in season 3 when it's like the unshun, that got old really quick.
Yeah. Well, that to me was fine. It was when Andy was still a jerk and you weren't specifically rooting for him. It got a little annoying, and then like
so the whole series. When we weren't specifically rooting for him.
Props to the right. I rooted for him after he came back. I thought that they did a great 180 with his character until the final season. But when Andy, like, props to the writers that they let us realize that they were going for annoying, and that he even annoyed Michael. Of all the characters on the show, when you get under Michael's skin and you're annoying him, you really have issues.
I have a theory with Andy Bernard. He's likable when he's sitting by Phyllis and Stanley, because in season 3 he wasn't there because that was Karen's spot, and then after season 7 he was in Michael's office. And that's when he started to go downhill again. So as long as he's sitting in that spot by Phyllis and Stanley, he's likable.
That's not theory. That's data collection.
Yeah,
you're highlighting correlation. The other story I didn't like was Phyllis's wedding. They had like the bachelor party before that, and Phyllis's wedding episode was her engagement. I was like, whatever.
And a good one. I liked Kevin as a
I
band.
kind of like that. You never liked Phil. You didn't like Phyllis in the last episode we did. You tried to vote her out early.
I'm never gonna like Phyllis. You can't get me to like her.
What kind of work are you in, Bob?
I like Bob. I like Bob more than I like Phyllis.
I love that. That's
he's part of the wedding too.
It's his wedding too, man.
No, it's Pam and Roy's wedding. All
That's
right,
true. It was Pam and Roy's wedding.
That was a funny storyline. I like that episode a lot.
I love when Kevin's like, "We're looking for Uncle Al. He's got brown hair dementia." And it goes right into Roxanne.
It's very serious. Roxanne.
You're convincing yourself you actually like that episode.
It's still in season 3. Season 3 is full of a number of bangers. I didn't say that's the worst episode, but just
the worst storyline, which is like the whole point of the episode.
Yeah.
Well, there's a little bit leading up to it too. Like I said, the bachelor party before that, and there's something else in the episode before that too. But.
So my worst storyline is actually when they sent Andy to anger management, because I think was that a shoehorn because of a movie part or something like that. Like he had to go away for a little bit.
I don't think he was
Hanger.
big enough yet. I think they thought they were going to get rid of him and then realized like what a hit that he was after they had written this episode. And they're like, okay, we need to bring him back.
Yeah,
That's my thought.
I knew that he was originally going to be a temporary, and then brought him back. So that could
Because that, to me, that was just, it seemed the idea that he's like this rager and puts his fist through the wall. It just didn't make sense to me. It seemed like, I don't know. And when they brought him back, it was like they very much shifted his character to, I don't know. I thought that was kind of
Yeah, he was definitely one of those characters they switched all the time. Where I think there were moments where I really obvious. I mean, we've argued about this before, but there were moments where I loved Andy. I thought in the later seasons that was kind of his moment to shine, but the whole anger thing, that was my worst. Where I just like, I don't know. I didn't really care for it. I mean, the whole thing where Jim threw the phone in the ceiling, that was funny, but the storyline of his anger, I was just kind of like, that's not Andy. I don't know, it didn't really fit.
I like the talking head they added in one of the deleted scenes of Creed. Once that's in the ceiling, he's like, "This place has some good taste in music, but terrible sound system."
I love that Creed he's basically the same person in real life, like completely mysterious. No one understands this guy. Isn't that his real name too?
Yeah, Creed Bratton.
Yep.
But it's also not his real name, because he tells a story of how he got that name is that he went on a bender overnight, and then when he woke up, he couldn't remember anything, but he saw a series of names written down, and all of them were crossed out except for the name Creed Bratton, and he decided to make that his name in real life.
Sounds about right.
Well,
yeah, exactly.
When he held up the passport that said William Charles Schneider, that was his actual passport, and they had to make sure he held it so he wouldn't like give away his actual passport number and ID information.
Oh, Creed. All right. Well, season 3 is my favorite season, and it also has my favorite episode. So we'll talk about best episodes. You already said yours, Brian, and mine. I've said this a number of times. Best episode of the series is Benihana Christmas. I love it. I could watch it over and over.
Yep, that's very up there for me too.
That was one of my favorites too. The moment where Michael Marks, the waitress, was that moment where you're just like in complete shock. Just did that. And they didn't even look alike.
It is such a great episode.
And there's the runner where he asks everybody if they want to go to Sandals, Jamaica, and then it ends with, we don't know who it is yet, but it ends with Jan finally saying yes.
Yeah. I love his facial expressions too. There was like this episode, they let Steve Carell do a little bit more even in his facial expression. So when he's breaking that like Christmas is ruined, or like they canceling Christmas, like the faces that he makes, where he's like, all of your friends would cancel anyway and leave your life a big mess, and then like he does like this smile that he puts on, or like I just don't think it would be appropriate to celebrate under the circumstances, and then like cuts himself off and has like I can't watch that scene again because the facial expressions he makes are just peak Michael Scott.
And then was, Jim, take New Year's away from Stanley.
And Jim has a great facial expression too in that.
I loved the little run or two of Dwight arguing with the hibachi guy about knives.
Yeah.
Such a great episode. I mean, you laugh through the entire episode. It's pure comedy all the way through.
And then there's the committee to plan parties and the party planning committee. And then when they finally agreed to merge, Angela's like, I think I may have seen a cord. Goes and grabs it. Is it this one?
I constantly quote this from this episode. I constantly quote the, is that a threat? It's an invitation. All the time. I quote the lines that I quote the most from this show are a Meredith Angela interchange. Congratulations, universe, you win.
And it's got everybody doing their karaoke.
Yeah.
Kevin, Creed, Kelly, Angela.
Also, when I listen to We Belong, Angie and we always add, we belong together, Ryan.
I do that too.
Every time.
I think, like, I mean, this is, to me, this is the standout episode, and it's not really even that close. It's the best one, which is kind of unfortunate because there are so many other great episodes in this season.
Yes.
I mean, Gay Witch Hunt is hilarious. The Convention is hilarious.
Safety
Um,
training, beach games.
Beach Games
Beach
is
Games is
probably
really
up
good.
there for me. Yeah.
The Convict.
Yeah.
Oh, safety training. If there's a number 2, it's safety training.
Yeah.
Ooh, I think Beach Games number 2, but I also like Safety.
Yeah, the moment in safety training that I thought was hilarious was when I think Daryl is telling about how he got injured or whatever, and Michael is they switched to
Yes.
Michael, and he was like up on a ladder and
Yeah.
knocks it over, and Michael goes, "What's hanging?" or "How's it hanging?" or
Yeah.
something.
He's like, can't get through it. He's laughing so much.
or when Dwight's trying to get the office to come out and is like, will I be fine in a long sleeve tee? Everyone will be fine in wearing exactly what they're wearing.
And just that realization with Jim, Michael's going to kill himself pretending to kill himself.
I like the part where they're in the warehouse and Daryl's like, no one is allowed to use the forklift.
Or the baler.
Except in some situations where, like, we'll need to. No one is allowed to.
There is no situation.
Oh, I get it. Only the rarest of No, Michael. And the B plot is actually the B plot of this episode was really good too, with them betting on everything in the office. That's a really funny one too.
But the baler also came back in this Michael's last episode where he's like, Daryl said in the last day I could use the baler. No.
I think Daryl was one of the best in the show. I loved him. He obviously they brought him more in as the show went on, but I bet you he was. I don't know this, but I bet he was one of those where he's like, okay, we need to show this guy a little bit more. And
that's exactly
season 4 is when he became a series regular, and I wouldn't be surprised if it was because of this episode.
Mike, it's so brave of you to have to wake up every day knowing that you got to be you. Do you really mean that? I couldn't do it. All right. Any other episodes top tier?
Yeah, I think this was this season 3 or was that season 2 where the negotiation?
It
might have been
3.
season 2.
That's 3, yeah.
3, but there's a moment where Michael's wearing the woman's suit.
Yeah.
That's the one right before safety training. So it was 2 great Daryl episodes back to back.
Later on, he describes it. I think he's talking to his mom. He's like, oh, I accidentally cross-dressed.
I know that feeling every day.
I think we should touch quickly on Beach Games too, because it's such a preposterous idea that like Michael is choosing his replacement based on a hot dog eating contest.
And sumo wrestling.
And then you have Andy floating down the river. I mean, it was just Pam walking on hot coals. There were just so many things in this episode.
I was with a group called Dunder Mifflin. My name is Andy Bernard.
That actually ends up being my most memeable moment for me is when he's floating away and is like, Angela, it's pretty simple. Look at what I'm doing and tell someone it.
Yeah.
And then later on, Michael's like, and Andy is never here today. Where is Andy?
Yeah. I mean, to me, the best memeable moment, hands down, is Michael kissing Oscar.
Yeah. That's what I had too.
That moment was just unbelievable.
Yeah.
Oh.
I think you can't beat that one as for a memeable moment.
The way that it just played out where he's just like coiling and like you could just see he's just like, oh no.
When I'm playing games, I'll frequently, if I do something good, I'll frequently use that tone of I did it, like right after he does the kiss.
or Bears Beats
I love
Battlestar
Prison Mike too.
Oh yeah, Prison Mike, you see all the time. Or Bears Beats Battlestar Galactica is from season 3.
Oh yeah.
So I think those 3. I think the kiss, Bears Beats, and Prison Mike, and Sumo Andy. It's a great. This is why it's the good season. There's too much to choose from.
Yeah, there's so much to love about this season. Was there more that you guys had about Beach Games? I like I'm going to keep bringing up deleted scenes because this was the first time I'd ever watched Superfans episodes. But I like Kevin had a line in that one where he's like, at a certain point after the hot dog eating contest, he's like, I know I'm not going to be manager. Let's face it, my one shot was a hot dog eating contest.
Oh, that's good.
All right. Worst episode. Now this is hard, but there are a couple. I was looking at it. There were a couple that are weaker, but I wouldn't specifically say I didn't like them, nor would I call them weak episodes to begin with.
I'll say my worst one, and it has to be excluding the cold open because it is the Bears beats Battlestar Galactica cold open. With product recall. Because the rest of that episode is just kind of annoying when that lady is yelling at Michael to quit. That was just kind of not fun cringy, just annoying cringy. And also, do we really need to have a storyline where Andy is dating a teenager?
Yeah, that was weird.
Yeah.
It's a choice. It's a choice for sure. I don't feel like it did anything for the episode. It wasn't funny, and it didn't do anything for the character. And I'm glad that there was a lot that they left on the cutting room floor of that, seeing the Superfan episode, because they doubled down on the joke in that, and it never landed to begin with.
Yeah.
Wasn't Product Recall the one where Creed was like responsible for it? And calling all these people.
Yeah.
I thought that moment was funny, just because Creed is so out there.
Yeah.
I like that, and I like the Cryman Squaw when Michael's calling them in for crisis, and like when he's like, "I need 2 men on this." No, that's what she said. No time, but that's what she said. But there's no time.
So I actually had one that is kind of this might be a controversial pick, but it's one that's kind of talked about a lot as a significant episode, but I think it's kind of overrated, and that's grief counseling. And I know a lot of people love the bird funeral, and that was such a touching moment. But just the idea that like his old manager died, and he's wrestling with the idea of death. I don't know. It wasn't funny enough for me.
Yeah,
I get that. I still like it though. I don't know where I would rank it. One of these times, I think just for myself, I'm going to rank all of the Office episodes, but I don't know. I kind of agree.
It was funny for me. I like how they resorted to telling movie plots as to try and get out of it, and so she did $1 Million Baby, and Ryan did Lion King, and then he caught on about Weekend at Bernie's with Kevin.
That was funny.
Yeah.
Ryan's like, that would probably take an hour and a half to tell that story.
My favorite was Diwali, the one with Kelly's.
I didn't like that one either.
Yeah. My Angie said that she would pick that one as the worst. Mine was actually Traveling Salesman. I didn't like that too much. There's a couple of funny moments, but again, it's not like it's an episode I hated, but it just was weaker.
Give me the synopsis.
So they all partner up. Karen and Phyllis go on a sales call. Ryan and Stanley go on one. Michael and Andy
love that episode. I love that episode.
Ryan and Stanley.
Yeah.
Where
right. I was just
that was so great. I loved it because it's unusual pairings. Like you don't get those people together. It was so creative. I thought
we're all against Matt on this one.
That's one of my favorite episodes in the season, honestly.
Good.
I liked seeing Jim and Dwight work together and sell well.
Yeah.
I thought that was a good idea. Stanley laughing about Ryan not selling good was funny. But
when Ryan saying, I was his second choice after Pass.
After Pass, that's a good line.
Karen and Phyllis? Come on, Phyllis with the makeup. Oh my goodness, that was so funny.
I'll just bill you for that.
That part of it was whatever. And then I realized that after watching this episode, they have done the Andy goes on a sales call with someone else and then ends up ruining the sales call. They did that 3 or 4 times with Andy, and this was the first one of it. But like him and Pam, except for that one, like they started off where they're like, oh, we found this niche of us being together as a couple, but then he takes it too far. Or like when he goes with Will Ferrell, or there's one other one. Oh yeah, in the Product Recall one where he's in there with Jim and like just losing it in front of the principal. Andy sucks in those situations.
I want to put a full page ad, 1 page, 2 words. Good luck. Nope, that's not it.
So. Well, whatever. Apparently, it's such a funny episode. What other ones were there on there? Because there's a couple other ones I was like, these are fine. I didn't actually like. You said the convention was hilarious. Convention was okay.
Oh, I like the convention.
Me too.
Yeah, I wasn't blown away by it.
There you go.
I think it was. You got to bring Jim back for a while before he actually came back.
All right. Well, that is seasons 1 through 3. Great season. Well, 2 great seasons in one that just exists.
Oh no.
Agreed.
Thank you
2 and
to
3
our
quarters of a
awesome
great
guests.
season.
We love having Paul and Dan on. You both have been on at least 3 times, if not. Paul, you've been 4. Is that right?
This is Paul's
this is
5.
5th.
Yeah.
Oh man,
And 3 for
Wow.
Paul and 3 for Dan.
Dan, got it.
Wow,
Those are
that's
rookie numbers, man.
really cool.
Well, thank you to them. We're gonna jump into trivia, and so last week's trivia. Brian, what did we talk about?
We talked about Breaking Bad, and we each had trivia. So
That's
maybe
right.
you guys know the answers to this. So Matt, why don't you do yours first?
So Breaking Bad, like you said, we talked about that. They do a lot of fun stuff with their titles of their episodes. And so in season 2, they had 4 different episodes that all had a cold open. It was in black and white, hinting at a future event that was going to happen. And, you know, there's a teddy bear in the water and everything. But what was unique about the titles of all 4 of those episodes? Paul, Dan, do you guys know?
I don't know. I
was-
can't remember.
They
7
spelled a sentence that was what the foreshadowing was. 737 down over ABQ.
And the other one is in the first episode that featured Mike Ehrmantraut. Mike came in to clean up after the death of Jane, Jesse's girlfriend. Originally, that was going to be Saul Goodman, played by Bob Odenkirk, who was going to come. But Bob Odenkirk was not a series regular, and he was busy filming guest appearance on What Sitcom, which would prevent him from being in this episode of Breaking Bad. He was playing Artillery Arthur, Marshall's boss on How I Met Your Mother.
Mm-hmm.
There you go. So that's what you got. There's your trivia from last week. This week, our trivia is brought to us by the letter Dan Risdall. Dan, what's your trivia?
What? All right. Beginning of the series, episode 1, the pilot. Michael Scott says he's worked at Dunder Mifflin for how many years?
Ooh, that's a
Good
good
one.
one.
Get you with
Oh.
trivia.
I like that.
At least 1. All right. So thank you again, Dan, Paul. It was a blast having you on. Until next time, I'm Matt.
I'm Brian.
I'm Paul.
And
And we're reminding you to stay tuned and keep watching. Sarcastic comment.